in the world of Bitcoin, we have quite a lot of debates, discussions regarding climate change, what is real, what isn't. And it's a spectrum from people on one side completely dismissing it's even happening, or claiming that climate change is natural cycles, yada, yada, to those who would maybe fall into the Epstein camp, who admit that the climate is changing, but maybe will say, well, we need to burn fossil fuels. Humans flourish with burning fossil fuels. That the best thing we can do to mitigate climate change is burn more fossil fuels, so we can have the technologies to for mitigation. He argues succinctly and strongly. We have groups of people who admit it's happening, but think there's nothing we can do about it. And what's the point saying someone like the UK trying to do anything when we contribute something like 1% of global emissions and China's not making any difference? To people all the way the other end let's start saying someone like me who believes it's an issue, we're causing it, but I'm a massive fucking hypocrite because I fly around the world and drive a car and have done nothing, or done very little. To the what I would say the people who are kind of like the crazy environmentalists who don't seem to have rational alternatives to ending things like oil. So there's this huge spectrum. And me, as somebody who does a job like this, who wants to understand everyone's position, therefore gets completely lost. I find it hard to hold one position because I'm like, well, apart from the people who complete denialists, they're fuck them. But Epstein, I'm like, you make really good arguments. And the people over here are like, yeah, no, we're going to destroy the planet and we're all going to die. It's like, you make some really good arguments. So I get completely lost. Where do you fit in all of this?
So where I fit is, in my mind, there's no question that climate change is happening, that it's caused by humans, and that it's urgent that we address it. It's not only carbon dioxide emissions, but it's also methane and other gases which cause global warming. And my response to that is, well, I can reduce my carbon footprint, but that's only going to cause so much good. So how can I use my time on this planet and the little bit that I know to make a difference beyond my own carbon footprint? So I'm a pragmatist.
Why do we have difficulty convincing people that climate change is real and is caused by humans? Why is there such strong arguments against it? Surely scientifically this should be easy to prove.
Yeah, scientifically there's some great arguments right back to Carl Sagan enunciating it very well decades ago. I've pulled up some old footage of Margaret Thatcher back in the 1990s when she was staunchly acknowledging the pressing need to address climate change early and urgently in the 1990s. So there was actually a time in history, recent history, where it was increasingly widely acknowledged across the political spectrum. And what seems to have happened since then is that certain vested interests have done a very good job of creating FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So the same tactics that opponents may use of Bitcoin have been used to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt around the legitimacy of climate change.
There was that book, the guy we have on the show, The Decade We Could Have Saved.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Rich?
Nathaniel Rich wrote a book. Can you dig up the name of his book? He does a really good work. He's done a range of things. He even did the research into the Canadian exchange, didn't he?
Quadriga.
Did he do the article about... There's that film... Oh, God, why my memory always throws me? There's this really great film... Dark Waters? Is it Dark Waters?
That was the one. Yeah, I don't know. Was that him?
I think he wrote the article that led to that film. That was to do with one of the I think it's oil firms were leaking oil into the... God, I can't remember the details. But anyway.
Yeah, he wrote something called The Lawyer Who Became DuPont's Worst Nightmare, which was part
DuPont's, that's it, yeah. Yeah, no, DuPont, the chemicals were leaking into the soil, the cows were dying, the local people were getting cancer. He wrote the article that became the film.
Right.
And he wrote a book, Losing Earth, a Decade We Almost Stopped Climate Change. I'm pretty sure this book is about ExxonMobil.
Yeah.
Their scientists said and knew climate change was happening. They knew it was because of increases in carbon in the atmosphere.
Correct.
And they knew it was humans causing it. They knew all of this. They're in-house scientists, and then I'm pretty sure it was the Bush administration, and it just something happened during that period whereby when the focus changed from let's do something about it to PR campaigns. It's like the same as big tobacco and everyone did to just destroy it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story.
But even so that's happened, I still, if the scientific evidence is there, if it can be proven, why do we still struggle to convince some people? I just don't understand it. Because I've read through the evidence.
It was interesting. I was chatting to Brad Mills actually the other day, and he gave me an insight into it. And he said, look, see, what happens is once you've been lied to once by the government, or maybe twice, you start to disbelieve everything they say. And so he said, look, I'm kind of libertarian. I don't believe anything the state tells me. So if they tell me that climate change is an issue, I'm just not going to believe them because it's the state and I don't believe the state. He said, however, if you tell me, you're a guy who believes in sound money. If you tell me, Daniel, that we have methane emission problems, I'm going to say, really? Let me look at that. So it's less about the science and more about whether the person telling you trust. And because we've lost so much trust in government, some would say with very good reason, unfortunately, we're not going to trust them, or a lot of people aren't going to trust them when they hear, look, climate change is real, and people say, no, it's all a big scam, it's all a big hoax, I'm sick of being lied to, this is just another lie. I can totally understand why people would form that reaction.
Another tool of control.
Yeah, it's another tool of control.
Taxation.
Yeah, it's just for to create fear so that they can impose an agenda on us. And look, those tactics have been used in other areas, so it's natural people would be suspicious and think that climate change is just another example of that. So I totally get why people would suspect that it's a hoax.
There is a geographic point to this. So totally. I don't know what it's like here in Australia, what it's like in New Zealand.
It's not a debate we have.
We don't have it in the UK.
We don't have the debate at all.
There are a few
it's
people
only in the States and one or two other countries.
There are a few people trying to have it, and they tend to be the people who show strong alignment with American conservatism. I could name them, the people on Twitter I follow in the UK who fall into that camp. But there is no debate in the UK.
There's no debate.
There is debate over what should be done and could be done. Konstantin Kisin, who was on my show recently, has put up some very strong arguments that we in the UK, our net zero targets are close to impossible and will make almost no difference to global emissions. So it isn't worth it. What we should be doing is therefore investing in technology solutions for mitigation. And I think it was the Oxford Union where he did this. Have you ever seen his?
I haven't.
Is it long? Is it too long to show now?
It's too long. It's a good 5 minutes, but it's really good.
Yeah, it's well worth watching. We'll share it with you.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah. But it isn't a debate in the UK. Everyone is aligned and understands there is an issue. They're not aligned on the solutions. Just Stop Oil are pissing everybody off. Everyone hates them. People want to run them over when they block the roads. Yeah. They disturb. Look, I admire any protest, by the way. So right to protest, and you cannot deny they've been effective. Yeah. They've just not won hearts and minds. Come to the US, and it might be because of the community I mix in with Bitcoin is slightly different, but come to the US, the debate seems a lot bigger.
Yeah, I think it is a lot bigger. There's a lot of people who just don't believe it's happening in the US, and that's not representative of Europe or Australia or New Zealand, certainly. Okay,
firstly, so there will be people listening who are going to be like, fuck off, Pete, fuck off, Daniel, climate change isn't real, blah, blah, blah. How would you appeal to them? What would you say to them?
The first thing I'd say is I can completely understand why they've come to that conclusion, honestly.
Yeah.
Just in the same way that I can completely understand why an environmentalist has come to the conclusion that Bitcoin is bad for the environment. Because in both cases, you trust certain sources who are in your tribe.
Yeah.
And this is just the way that humans are designed. Maybe in some other planet's different and we listen to rationality much more, but we tend to listen to people we know, like, and trust. And so environmentalists will listen to other environmentalists and people in Greenpeace USA and Sierra Club. And if they're all saying Bitcoin's bad, then you're soaking in that environment. You'll take on the viewpoint of that tribe. And if you're mixing with people who are all the time saying climate change is a hoax, don't trust the state, then you can understand why you come to that viewpoint. And all I'd say is, look, I totally understand that. If you're interested in having your viewpoint changed, I'm happy to have a discussion with you. but I'm not interested in the debate.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting one as
Yeah.
well, because I've noticed, like Epstein, for example, has tried to get people to debate him. I've a kind of relationship with someone called Catherine Hayhoe. She's been on the podcast, and we discuss things. And I've asked her about these debates, and she said, "I'm not debating people who I fundamentally know are wrong. It is a waste of my time. It's not happening." But I find Epstein an interesting character because he accepts climate change as real. He knows that's a dumb argument. So his argument is that let's not have that debate. The debate should be what we should do about it. And his belief is we should continue to burn oil. We should be encouraging and making oil available to the poorest communities in the world, because energy leads to prosperity, and innovation will lead to mitigation. I have a lot of sympathy for that argument, mainly because I think humans are trash as a group, and we won't solve the problem. So even if everyone agreed, doesn't matter. It's like everyone in this room, everyone in Europe, Australasia, America all agreed climate change is real. I don't think we have the will to make the changes to stop it.
Yeah, it's real tough. It really is tough. And the reality is that some of the ways that we've gone about trying to address climate change have not worked that well. If you look at a whole lot of stranded energy, solar and wind development, which is in parts of the world without any consideration about building out the grid or about balancing that intermittency, there's been some big mistakes that have been made. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing something about it, or we couldn't nuance that and take those considerations into play. But we've made some mistakes. So I guess part of what I've looked to do is said, well, that's a big challenge to solve. Where's some low-hanging fruit? And for me, with my technology hat, when you're a technology entrepreneur, you're always looking for the shortcuts. Where's the low-hanging fruit? Where's the thing that's easy or relatively easy to solve, where I can make an impact? Where's the area which I have some knowledge about? It turned out I didn't have very much knowledge. I had to go and learn it, or get some people on the team who did have some knowledge. But it was all methane. And that was the area that I found that while everyone was debating carbon dioxide, and there's no question we need to mitigate that as well in my mind, and that's why we are investing in companies who do mitigate carbon dioxide, but there was a much more pressing concern, and that was our methane levels, which were rising parabolically. And only 2 cents in every climate tech dollar was going into methane mitigation. The other 98 was going to carbon dioxide, but methane mitigation is the one that's, according to the UN, that's our biggest hope to actually reduce climate change in our generation.
All right, I definitely want to come back to methane, but I didn't want to pass on, because you mentioned Greenpeace.
Yeah.
Really interesting in that I've lost all respect for Greenpeace over the last year or so.
Well, I got to make a nuance. It's Greenpeace USA who are running that campaign.
Fine.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying.
I mean, I don't know the politics or the organizational structure globally. I used to be a donor to Greenpeace, in my 20s. I don't even know why I stopped. But anyway, I was a donor to Greenpeace, always respected everything they did. And then the propaganda campaign they've run against Bitcoin, which is a paid propaganda campaign, which is based entirely on lies, whereby either they are knowingly lying to accept money, or they're refusing to do the proper research to understand if they're disseminating truth or facts, makes me completely distrust them as an organization now. And it's a bit like you said, once you've been lied to once, it's the same that's happened with the government, our UK government during COVID. Now we know we were fundamentally lied to. It's the same with the media, the corporate media in the UK, certainly the US, where we know we've been lied to. It was like Eric Weinstein just did this interview with Chris Williamson, and he was talking about we're in a post-truth world now, and nobody knows what the fuck anymore, how to find the truth.
Exactly.
And that people are choosing a side on any issue and sticking with it rather than like searching for the truth. So like I've lost all trust in Greenpeace because of this. It's such a weird thing for them to do.
Yeah, it seems like the latter rather than the former. I think they genuinely believe, from what I can make out, that Bitcoin is bad for the environment. I can understand why they believe that, because of the other people who whisper in their ear and tell them that and reinforce that message. But my criticism is, just as you say, that they haven't backed up the truck and actually done the research. They just haven't. and it's been out there, and it's coming out there in increasing regularity now, but the message is still the same.